Hello everyone, welcome back to our Google Classroom. We discussed active voice and passive voice in the last class. What do you mean by active and passive voice? A verb is in the active voice when its form shows that the subject is the doer of the action. A verb is in the passive voice when its form shows that the subject is the receiver of the action's effect. Then, what is the pattern of active and passive voice? The pattern of active voice is subject plus verb plus object. Then, what about passive voice? Subject plus any form of be. Which are the form of be? Is, am, are, was, were. So that we have to add any of these form of be according to the tense as well as the subject. Then the third form of the main verb V3. Then the word by, then object. This is the pattern of passive voice. Today we will discuss how we can change an active voice into passive and a passive voice into active. The important point is we can change a verb in the active voice into passive if the verb has an object. That means if the verb has no object, we cannot change an active voice into passive. For example, I often read on Sunday afternoons. I often read on Sunday afternoons. Here, subject and verb is there. Which is the subject? I. And which is the verb? Read. So, there is no object. So, we cannot change this voice into passive. Let's check which are the changes that we have to make while we change an active voice into passive. First one, the object of the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice. The object of the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice. Second one, use the appropriate form of be according to the tense and the subject. Which are the forms of be? Is, am, are, was and were. If the tense is present tense, we have to use is, am or are. If the subject is singular, we have to use is, and if the subject is plural, we have to use are. And if the subject is I, we have to use am. Then, if the tense is past tense, we have to use was with singular subject and were with plural subject. Third one, use the third form of the main verb, V3 of the main verb. First one, the object of the active voice becomes the subject of the passive voice. Second one, use the appropriate form of be. And third one, use the third form of the main verb. Let me explain this through some examples. First one, birds build nests. Birds build nests. Second one, the teacher taught the students. The teacher taught the students. First sentence is in the present tense, simple present tense. Subject plus V1 is used, so it is simple present tense. Second sentence, subject plus V2 is used, so it is simple past tense. Let's check how we can change these active voice into passive. So, according to the first rule, what we have to change? We have to change the object of the active voice into the subject of the passive voice. So, what is the object of the first sentence? Nest. So, make that object to the subject of the passive voice. So, start the sentence with nest. Nest. Then, which tense is used there? It is simple present. So, we have to use is or am or are according to the subject. The subject is plural here, so we have to use are. So, nests are. Then, build. What is the third form of build? It is built. Nests are built. Then the word by. By whom? Birds. So, nests are built by birds. That is the passive voice of the active voice. Birds build nests. What is the passive voice? Nests are built by birds. Second sentence. The teacher taught the students. What is the object here? The students. So we have to make that object into subject of the passive voice. We have to start the sentence with the students. The students, it is plural and it is in the simple past. So we have to use were. The students were. Then the third form of the verb, it is taught. The students were taught by the teacher. The students were taught by the teacher. That is the passive voice of this sentence. Let's take some more examples to understand the changes. Study this table to understand forms of active voice and passive voice in tenses. First tense, simple present. Active voice. Pratima writes a letter. Passive voice. A letter is written by Pratima. Present continuous. Active. Pratima is writing a letter. Passive. A letter is being written by Pratima. With the continuous tense, we have to use the word being. Present perfect. Active. Pratima has written a letter. Passive. A letter has been written by Pratima. So with the perfect tenses, we have to use the word been. Then simple past. Active. Pratima wrote a letter. Passive. A letter was written by Pratima. Past continuous. Active. Pratima was writing a letter. Passive. A letter was being written by Pratima. Past perfect. Active. Pratima had written a letter. Passive. A letter had been written by Pratima. Simple future with will. Active. Pratima will write a letter. Passive. A letter will be written by Pratima. Simple future with the word going to. Active. Pratima is going to write a letter. Passive. A letter is going to be written by Pratima. Future perfect. Active. Pratima will have written a letter. Passive. A letter will have been written by Pratima. Then, how we can change a passive voice into active? It's very simple. We have already learned how we can change an active voice into passive. So, the object of the passive voice becomes the subject of the active voice. And the subject of the passive voice becomes the object of the active voice. That is the first change we have to make. The subject of the passive voice becomes the object of the active voice, and the object of the passive voice becomes the subject of the active voice. Use the verb according to the tense. Then avoid the word by. These are the important steps we have to make while we change a passive voice into active. We have some textual activities related to this. Let's do that now. Page number 97, Activity B. These sentences have been rewritten in the active voice. Fill in the blanks to complete them. First one, the money for the excursion has been collected by the class monitor. The class monitor dashed the money for the excursion. The subject and the object are already mentioned here. Then we have to use the verb according to the tense. Which tense it is? It is present perfect tense. So the answer is the class monitor has collected the money for the excursion. Second one, excellent doshas are served at this restaurant. This restaurant dash excellent doshas. This is present, simple present tense. So we have to use serves. The answer is this restaurant serves excellent doshas. Find out the answers for the rest of the questions. Page number 98, Activity C. Identify the voice in these sentences. Write active or passive on the short blanks. Then change the voice and rewrite the sentences. First one is given as an example. This painting has been made by Fiza. It is passive voice. Second one. Children loved Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. Which voice it is? Subject plus verb plus object. It is active voice. How can we change it into passive? Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam was loved by children. Find out the rest of the answers yourself. Page number 99, Activity D. Do you like reading comic books? Have you ever wondered how they are made? The sentences below tell you the process of creating comic books. Change them into the passive voice. First one is given as an example. Do it yourself. Activity E. Use the verbs given in brackets and fill in the blanks in the passive voice to complete the paragraph. So we have to use the passive voice. For that, we should use the appropriate form of be, then V3, third form of the verb given in brackets. First one is given as an example. Pottery is one of the oldest crafts practiced by humans. To make pottery, first the clay, soft is the word given in bracket. We have to use is softened and dash, smooth is the word used there. So, smoothened. Complete the activity yourself. Do the activity F also. Then page number 101, activity G. Rewrite these sentences in the active voice. First one. This saree was bought by me in Bengaluru. So it is simple past. I bought this saree in Bengaluru. That is the active voice of the first sentence. Find out the rest of the answers yourself. That's all for today. A YouTube URL is attached. Watch the video. A test paper is included. Submit your answers as soon as possible. We can meet in the next class with a new topic. Thank you.